Welcome to Around the Girdled Earth, the podcast where Dartmouth stories come to life. I'm your host, Yovany Jerez, class of '03, and each episode will sit down with members of the Dartmouth alumni community to explore the moments, the mentors, and the memories that shaped them from green to the great unknown. So whether it's been a year or half a lifetime since Hanover, we all love stories worth telling. These conversations are where they come to life. So grab your favorite drink, step into the story, cue up the nostalgia, and let's wonder together. Today, my very special guest is Madeline Ruiz, class of 2001. She's affectionately known as Maddie. Hi, Maddie. How are you? Where
Hey,
are you calling
Giovanni.
us from?
I am calling from Madrid, Spain, joining you today. Thank you for having me.
But I know that's not your background, so why don't we start there? Why don't you give us a little bit of a background of your cultural background? What's your mix? Brasileña,
Sure.
that Greek. Give us a little bit of that context.
Sure. So I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire, to first-generation parents. My dad immigrated from Brazil and my mom from Greece, and they had met in Manchester, both working as very young people. My dad never graduated college, but my mom was working at a factory there on college break. They met, fell in love. Here I am. And I grew up with a very strong connection to Brazil. My parents did a really good job of maintaining the connection with my Brazilian family. I would go every summer and spend summers in southern Brazil with my family, which actually meant that I didn't get a summer because summer in the States is actually winter in Brazil. So that was the only downside. But I loved it. And, I learned Portuguese, just kind of a sink or swim method. Go there, be with your family, talk to your cousins, talk to everyone and kind of figure it out. And actually, when I went to Dartmouth, I studied Portuguese formally. And of course, that was a big shift because when you learn it just through listening and being with family, it's a very different form of the language than when you learn it formally. So that's it. Yeah.
I didn't know you were so close to Dartmouth. Obviously, Manchester is just a jump away. So you were already obviously familiar with the area. But when did it become like a known to you that Dartmouth was a possibility and that's something that you wanted to do?
So it's kind of an interesting story. My parents had just bought a house in Manchester, and our neighbor one day, I think I was maybe like a junior in high school, and I actually switched high schools halfway through. So my junior year was actually my first year at this school next to our new house. And I was a great student, was thinking about colleges, but didn't really have an understanding of where I would go. And I didn't really know too much about like Ivy League versus regular schools. Again, my parents, they didn't grow up with that. So they didn't really know how to guide me. And I was really working directly with the guidance counselor at the school. So funnily enough, I get home from school one day and I'm walking up my driveway and I see this little old man. He was like, I don't know, 4'9". He was so tiny. And he starts like calling me from the bushes and he goes, Miss, I'm your new neighbor, Mr. Flanders. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you, whatever. And he said to me, I see you're about to go to university. Have you ever thought about Dartmouth College? And literally, I had never heard of Dartmouth. I didn't know anything. I hadn't thought about Dartmouth. And that started like a real friendship with him. I would go over, he lived with his wife. He was already in his mid-90s. And he had an entire room dedicated to Dartmouth memorabilia. And so I would go over and he would show me the yearbook and he would talk about his time at Dartmouth. And it meant so much to him And it was so inspiring because I never thought that you could have that kind of connection with a university. So fast forward a year, when I started applying to schools, he was like, well, you'll apply to Dartmouth, right? And I said, yeah, of course I'm going to apply now that, you've told me so all these amazing things. And he actually wrote me a letter of recommendation. This like angel that came out of nowhere. My parents had just bought this house, and he just happened to be our neighbor. And was just an incredible mentor, like the last couple years of my high school experience. So I credit him a lot. Yeah.
So much of it is, it's one, awareness, right? Just being aware.
Yeah.
And two, it's like the fact that you had somebody that was able to convey and materialize for you the spirit that so much of us walk out when we graduate from, right? It's like this love for this entity that just pulls us in it's a very I say the word strange because I rarely experience with all the things, right? But Dartmouth seems to pull it, right? What is that all about?
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of campus in Hanover?
Yeah, so the first time I visited campus, I wasn't sure it was the right fit for me. I growing up in Manchester, I always envisioned that I would be more in a city environment. And Hanover was like even smaller than where I had come from. So that I wasn't sure that was the right fit. And also I kind of went down, like I was recruited almost like through like the Latino channel. And when you and I went, there weren't that many Latinos on campus. And I wasn't a Spanish speaking Latino. I spoke Portuguese, and there were no other Brazilians. So for me, I almost felt like I get it. I see what Dartmouth is trying to do in recruiting Latinos, and I get that that's important. But I'm not sure I fit within that as a Brazilian American. And so I had my doubts about that as well. But my parents really encouraged me, and Mr. Flanders too, and my guidance counselor, and everybody was like, you know what, if you're given the opportunity, you got to take it. And luckily I was. And I took it, and I of course I don't regret it.
Wow. So that's something actually very interesting. That's a very interesting comment to think about, because you're right. You will count it as one of the 6 to 8% Latinos that get enrolled into campus, but you did not speak Spanish, right? And I've interviewed other alumni that had a very similar experience. They were like, hey, Mexican background, Hispanic background, but they didn't speak Spanish because they grew up here in the US, and they felt a little bit, oh, what's going on? How do I fit in? So that's interesting comment that you make. Once you arrived on campus, did you find a community?
So I found a community in the sense I've kind of built my own community, right? Like everybody does. And that's one of the beautiful things about Dartmouth, and the fact that it is at a smaller school. You are able to kind of find your people, right? None of them happened to be Brazilian or Latino at the time. Later on, I think my senior year, I met Guile and many other like Latino students, but it was later on. I was already, a junior. But my first friends actually were also first generation. Just by chance. I mean, it was really interesting. There was something very powerful about being on campus, and kind of like knowing that, like, all your family's expectations are on your shoulders. And that creates a very unique experience. And I think you're drawn to other people that are kind of going through that and have those same kinds of pressures. So my best friend, who's still my best friend today, Madeline Duarte, she's an 01. She was Pizzi Russo on campus, also first generation. And she lived above me. I was in 101 Guile, and she was on the second floor. And my name's Madeline, but in Portuguese, it's Madalena. And in Italian, it's Madeline also. So we connected on that, and we used to laugh about that all the time because people would ask us if we were sisters, and we were like, why would we both have the same name if we're sisters? Because we actually do look alike. But yeah, and my first year roommates, I'm still very close with, just really, really special people. But it starts with that DOC trip, and you realize you can do it. You can make friends here.
For those who don't know, Dartmouth Outing Club, which is kind of like a ritual of initiation for all incoming freshmen, right?
Whether you like it
about that, give us more context.
Whether you like it or not, I got it like day 3 of our hike. I got an ear infection. I lost my voice. I couldn't even talk to anybody. But what an incredible way to start your 4 years at Dartmouth, knowing that day 1 when classes start, you already know people on campus. So that was super special, and I think set me off on the right foot despite getting sick.
Maddie, what was your major? What was some of the hobbies that you do in sports? What was your favorite, place to study on campus? Did you do any all-nighters? Give us a lowdown on those 4 years at Dartmouth.
Yeah, sure. So I went into Dartmouth thinking I was going to be pre-med, because that's what one does when you're very smart and your immigrant parents assume that that's the singular path to making money and being successful. So I went in as pre-med, and after about a year, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. This is not what I'm passionate about. And I ended up, as one of my electives, I took an art history course. I had always drawn in high school. I was a fairly capable artist, but never thought of being an artist as a career. So I took an art history class, and it was modern art history with Mr. Jordan. He was 1,000 years old back then. And I just fell in love. I mean, Yovany, I tell, I don't know if I've told you the story, but I remember being on the edge of my seat in the middle of class. Like, I was so moved by what I was seeing and the way he conveyed the stories behind this art and interweaving the history of the moment. And I was blown away. I didn't know that this even existed, that you could dedicate your life to a subject like this, and study it and teach it and make a career out of it. So that was a really big turning point for me.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So you had amazing teachers. You discovered this new path in academics.
Yep.
How about from a fun perspective? Do you have any favorite traditions or any favorite memories that stood out from your undergraduate experience?
Yeah, sure. Again, those friends I made in 101 Guile, those people stayed with me throughout my 4 years and even beyond school. And so that group, we were roommates together, and then my friend Madalena with the floor above us, and we always tried to kind of live together for the rest of the 4 years. So you can imagine by year 4 what we had experienced together. I mean, everything from all-nighters, studying for exams, different majors and all of that. It's not like we're all studying the same material, but just they're supporting one another. The 101 Guile group did become infamous for our pool parties. We had a friend of ours buy us one of those plastic kiddie pools. So we put that in my dorm room, and we would invite our floor over. We would fill it up with water, towels everywhere, plastic, making sure we didn't destroy the place. Fill it up with water. That water, now that I think about it, that water had to be so disgusting. What were we doing? But the best time, loud music, everybody having a good time, the middle of winter, probably snowstorms outside, and everybody in shorts and t-shirts, in the kiddie pool, in a dorm room that's big, But yeah, we had a lot of those. That became our thing, the pool parties.
So as you reflect on your 4 years, Was there anything else looking back that you would do differently in order to optimize your experience, right? If there was a high school student thinking about coming to Dartmouth or even starting their just college experience, are there any key points that you would say, hey, here's some things for your consideration?
Totally. And things that I, try to pass on to my kids as well. I think I really underestimated, while I had amazing friends and they're still my friends now, I think I really underestimated the power of networking, and how important it was. I found my group and I kind of just stayed within that group. But I think it would have been really good if I had kind of pushed myself to network more with people that were maybe different from me, or studying different things from me, or whatever. I kind of went into my comfort zone and found that, and I was so happy there and so content. I didn't really imagine that I would need a network after leaving the college, which, as you know, is so important. But it's one of those things that maybe if you're not brought up with that, or nobody really reinforces that for you, maybe it's just something that's just not, like, it's just not there. You don't envision like needing to do it. And obviously once I graduated, I was like, oh, would have been good to maybe do the recruiting or do more networking on campus so that I had this strong network when I left. So that's one thing I would tell all new students, is just be as social as possible, really be clear on, what that future path might look like for yourself, and start kind of planning accordingly. I mean, I was somebody who was in the career counseling, like up until May of my senior year. I was like, what do I do with this art history degree? And I went on to get my master's because that just seemed like the logical next step. But
Well, so then tell us about that continuation of your education. And I guess your comments reminded me of something. It's like, never allow your academics interfere with your education. I think your comments around networking are
yeah,
so relevant to that, right? It's like, yes, you could learn a lot through academia, but you also learn a lot from the experiences of others and developing new friendships outside of your comfort zone. And Dartmouth was small enough but big enough where you could truly make those connections, but also get yourself out of your comfort zone. I wonder, what was your approach,
yeah,
after college, and if you could help us summarize that.
sure. And I mean, just to add, to Dartmouth's positive side, I would say that like things have changed so much since even when you and I went there, and the resources that they have for students that are unsure about what the next step is, and how to I don't want to be vulgar about it, but how to monetize, this amazing education that they're getting. Those resources are there in a way that they weren't for us. So I mean, that's incredible. So what I did was I graduated from Dartmouth. I had done like a senior thesis on architecture with the amazing Marlene Heck. She's a professor of architecture, very renowned professor at Dartmouth, but also like globally, and the books that she's published and her work in architecture, particularly in South America. So I went on to get my master's, and I focused on Latin American art and architecture. At the time, 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more, there was like 3 programs in the States for somebody that wanted to study Latin American art. It was Texas, Chicago, or Los Angeles. That was it. And now every art history program, every master's program has a Latin American contingent. So, I mean, things have just changed so much. But anyway, I chose Texas, and I loved it. I loved the program. It was very interesting. I also got married very early. And so that also had a pretty profound impact on kind of the trajectory of my career. So I got married, I got my master's, and then I went into teaching, which I did back in Boston. We moved back east to be with both of our families. So I taught for Oh, no, sorry. From there, after that, I went to Los Angeles, Laguna Beach, and I worked in an art gallery for a few years. And then we moved back east. Yeah. And I started teaching. I taught for 6 or 7 years. And then from there, I decided I wanted to write a book about spirituality and art. And so I took a sabbatical from teaching, and we all, my 2 kids, Guile and I, we all moved to Madrid. And that was almost 9 years ago now. And we're still here.
Wow. Of course, the husband you keep referencing is Madeline Ruiz, who's
Yes,
the first person I
98.
interviewed for this series. So yeah, go check that out. So obviously you had a very diverse post Dartmouth experience. I wonder what your tech talk will be about. If you had to give a 20-minute tech talk, what will be that subject? What will we learn from it?
I think for me, it would be about the experience of art. It's something that I'm really passionate about. My book is about that. And it's something that I practice with clients today here in Madrid. I'm an art advisor, art consultant, and I work with various artists and kind of promote their work both locally here in Madrid, but also internationally. And I do very much care about how people interact with art and experience art. And so if I were to do a TED Talk, it would be about, what's the difference between seeing and observing? How do we connect with what the artist is trying to communicate to us in a work of art, whether it's a painting or a sculpture or a performance? That's something I'm quite passionate about, and I try to share it with everybody that I meet.
That's almost like activating a different dimension, right? A different way of perceiving and seeing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? There's some paintings and there's some works of arts that pull you differently than others and speak to you differently, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is your sense that that's more of a reflection of the person than the painting, or maybe it's a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. I always tell clients who, if we go into a gallery and they're like, what am I looking at? I'm like, you know what? I feel the same way. The big secret is that, 90% of contemporary art is like not that great. Like, just say it. That's the truth. That's the reality. And the trick is kind of, doing the work and understanding the history behind it and understanding the artist's perspective and trying to cull that amazing 10% that can really give you that aha experience.
Yeah. So, éxito, the word that resonates in our cultures, your definition of success. I wonder how that definition has evolved for you from from your time at Dartmouth to post Dartmouth, and now you're married, you got 2 kids, you've been doing this for a while. Tell us a little bit more about those reflections.
So, of course, I think like anybody who's young, I think you immediately associate éxito with money, and kind of like finding your place in the world and making a lot of money from whatever it is that you're doing. And I think when you're young, you have a sense that that's going to come really quickly, which it doesn't, FYI. You think that's going to come really quickly. And then I think once I had kids and I, went through a period where I was, and when you move to another country, I didn't realize it at the time, but we both were, my husband and I, we were both kind of reinventing ourselves. You are starting from zero. Kelly's from the Dominican Republic. I'm from the US. We didn't have experience knowing what it is to live in Spain and adapt to the culture here. It's not just, okay, you speak the language, you'll be fine. It's really not that. It's a whole new network of friends. It's finding your people. Making sure your kids are happy and content and thriving and not struggling, in this new world. So for me, my definition of success has really changed. And I see how happy my kids are here. how happy I am, how happy my husband are, and I'm so proud of the way we've been able to make a life for ourselves, and not perhaps in a traditional path, because we didn't stay in the U.S. And we're both independent, kind of both have our own businesses and work every day towards kind of building our own brands and networking, and but at the same time, making a really solid life for our children. So that for me is success. When I see that we can all sit down at a Sunday lunch and have really interesting conversations about, what the kids are into and what I'm working on, the clients I'm working with, and what Guile's doing. That for me is success.
That's beautiful, and I empathize and echo your reflections on that. So as we come to an end of this conversation, Maddie, you have any favorite quotes, books, or any other golden nuggets of wisdom you want to share with our audience?
Let's see. Nuggets of wisdom, I would say, I think you have to, we all, the royal we all have to kind of give ourselves the time and space to kind of find your true calling. I think that there's a lot of pressure, particularly when you go to an elite school like Dartmouth. There's a lot of pressure and expectations that like you're going to figure it out while you're there, or right when you graduate, like you're going to be on the right path. And I talk to students about this a lot, whether it's in interviews or, students that might call me through like Dartmouth Connect or whatever. It's okay. Like life is supposed to be like this, and I think as a society, we kind of forget that that's normal and that's okay. And that we're all going to end up being successes in our own kind of definitions of that. So if I had to think of a book or like an author, I would suggest Deepak Chopra, because he has a really interesting perspective on the concept of abundance. And kind of like, what is that definition of abundance for you? Is it abundance of money or abundance of love? And kind of challenging yourself to kind of give everything up to the universe. You do the work, you put in the work, and you do what you can do, but not try to control the outcome. And that's very hard. As we're all overachievers, right, at Dartmouth, we want to control the outcome, but imagine if you didn't. Imagine if the only thing you had to focus on is being the best version of yourself. And if you did that, just trust that things are going to work out, not on your time frame, but they will work out. So Deepak Chopra is.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so
yeah.
last little question. So I know the
Sure.
University of Texas has also a strong alumni community.
Mhm.
How does that compare to the Dartmouth spirit? What are the key differences that you see, or similarities that you see?
Okay, so one thing I would say, I am always blown away by, I went to UT Austin. I'm blown away by the Hispanic network there. Of course, it's very different. I mean, the percentage of Hispanics on campus, I don't know, it's like 35, 40%, right? And also, you have Mexico very, very close nearby, and the population in that region of the US is highly Hispanic. So it's almost an unfair comparison, like to Dartmouth, let's say. But I think the empowerment that I see within that network, the way Hispanic alums help one another and stay connected, and want to, like, if they're here, they want to help bring you here or even help you, surpass. And that for me, wow, that's like so impressive. And I would love to see more of that within the Latino community, as alums and as young graduates. I think we can do a better job supporting one another, not just emotionally, but like as a network, right? We're a huge percentage of the US population. We're all working in really interesting sectors and hold really important jobs. And we all need to be leaning into that. That for me is clear. And I learned that through the UT Austin network, I would say.
Yeah, we absolutely as a community need to be more intentional about lifting others as we climb ourselves. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
And I applaud you, Yovany, for this initiative of this podcast, because it starts here, right? It starts with sharing those stories and finding people that, are open to kind of giving back and want to learn from one another. That's the network. That's where it starts. So congratulations to you for this initiative.
Well said, Maddie. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all of you out there that took some time to join us for this podcast of Around the Girdled Earth. If today's conversation sparked a memory or gave you something to think about, leave us a thoughtful reflection on the comment section. And please share this episode with a classmate or a fellow alum. It's frankly, it's a very easy way to keep the Dartmouth spirit alive in this chaotic digital age. So until next time, stay curious, stay green, and keep roaming this beautiful girdle earth we call home. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.